for you?
Well, one thing I learned or discovered was that a person who doesn't have a purpose for his life, he wastes time and he wanders because he's trying to figure out what he's supposed to be doing with himself. Most people who don't understand purpose, they waste their lives. And I did that for the first 28. And I won't say that all of my life wasn't wasted, but there was that gap between being removed from the military, which was 1993, and being arrested for these charges, which is 1995. So you're talking about a year and a half where I was just wandering, trying to figure out, dealing with a drug addiction. And it wasn't until I was incarcerated that I began to discover what my purpose was. And purpose gives your life direction. Because now I know when I wake up every day what I'm supposed to be doing. And your life takes on a whole different kind of flow when you're doing what you were sent here to do. So that's the one thing that Vandy and I talk a lot about. How important it is to help people discover purpose. And you only discover purpose, like Lionel talks about over and over again, by serving others. You find out what it is I'm gifted at, what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are, when we start giving back, serving others. And that's what gives life real meaning. That's where the true rewards come from, when you start serving others. And I learned that in prison. Amazingly, I learned that in prison. That my life was about giving back. And I use this phrase, adding value to others. Me and Lionel had a long discussion in the back room about that. And he and I have a little different approach to adding that value. Lionel's more stern, more disciplined. And I certainly believe in the discipline. But I've also learned that there are a segment of people who have heard words that have demoralized them, that have made them believe that they're not smart, they can't learn, they'll never go to college because of where they were raised, they'll never amount to anything. And I've seen firsthand men that come out of those environments, young men, come out of those environments, who when you begin to speak words to them that motivate them, that inspire them, that lift them up, and they'll start believing that they can accomplish. And I told him about one young man named Delvon Finney who said this after coming out of those kinds of homes, mother on crack, never met his father. He said this, he said, Lenny, if it can be taught, I can learn it. If it can be taught, I can learn it. So he developed the kind of confidence in himself, in prison, that he never experienced when he was free. And I've seen many cases like that, where young men come in contact with older men who start pouring into them, who start showing them and teaching them, taking them by the side, spending time with them, and to watch their self-image grow. No greater feeling in the world. I got a letter from him too. What was it, Monday? I hadn't been here a day or two. Got a letter from that same young man we're talking about now. And he says, Lenny, you won't believe the impact you've left here in this environment from the men watching you, because we talk about faith and believing. And a lot of people think that, faith is about sitting back, waiting on God to drop something out the sky. And they condemn me because I decided to walk away from the church, the leadership function of it, and focus on getting out. And a lot of them said, man, God's not going to honor that. He's not going to do nothing for you. You done stepped away from leadership at the church, And when they saw things start unfolding for me, I could see it in their eyes. And now I'm getting letters. Lenny, you don't realize how much we're still talking about you and what happened in your life. So we left a wake of what's possible with true faith, and the impact, that. And I told Lionel this, I said, Lionel, you don't realize how many people you've impacted. You just know the ones you came in contact with. But what about those ones who were just watching you? And you never really had hands-on. Because I learned this, people watch. They observe more than they want to hear you talk. They don't even want to hear what you have to say until they've seen your walk. And I've heard many men, I don't want to hear that crap. When I was in re-entry, a lot of you, man, half of these guys are going right back in the street and do what they did before. So they're definitely looking for an example, and they're looking for men to speak words that are going to motivate, inspire, and move them forward.
In some ways, you served as a father figure for a lot of young men.
Absolutely.
Yes, he did.
And I'm old enough to be their fathers.
Mhm.
You know, at 51 years old, they're 21. I met most of them when they were like 20, 21, 22. Now they're in their 30s. You know, so I spent like a decade or more around a lot of these young guys, and you know, for them to come and say what they said to me, you know, as I was departing, you know, that was the biggest reward I could have got.
And you couldn't have reached those young men if you hadn't been in prison with them.
Oh yeah,
They
absolutely.
wouldn't have gotten to meet you.
That's right. Why it's so important for us to go back.
Yeah.
You know, as doors open, that we go back, because like I told the counselors, you know, you've seen that on the WTKR video, because they were all asking me, Lenny, we hope you come back. We hope you come back. I said, I would love to come back. I would love to come back, because I know how it impacted me when men who were formerly incarcerated came back, who are out there doing well and successful, and came back and told us about their transition. Because a lot of guys are getting ready to transition, and you want to know, okay, what were the hard parts when you first got out? You know, what was the most difficult thing you had to do when you first got out? And what did you do to make it? So they're looking for that. They're not looking for counselors who've never been there, never been, you know, experienced that. They don't impact those guys the way guys who walked that walk and been through that and came out successfully. It's just like an NA group or AA group, or, you know, any group. You know, you get more credibility when you've been there, when you've done that, and you've overcome, you know. So, no doubt about it, man. I know God's going to open doors for me to go back in. Absolutely.
You've really become an expert as a result of your experience.
Well, 23 years in there, oh yeah. I was telling Lionel, I said, it's one thing to visit those guys. It's another thing to live amongst them. Day after day, month after month, year after year, and you start learning why they're the way they are. That's what I had to figure out, why I was the way I was. Why did I keep self-sabotaging? What kept me going the wrong direction, making the wrong choices? You know, and once you get to the root of a thing, you can start working, you can start fixing it, you know. But if you never know why you keep doing what you do, you know, that's like spinning your wheels.